Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is Modern Overman. Okay, so for today's video, I got kind of another opinion video, we could call it that. I know our last video on sort of the problems in Hunt definitely had some, I don't want to say controversy, but I guess it was a hot take, and people responded to that relatively strongly, both on social media and on the YouTube comments. But either way, I'm happy that people are engaging and that people have opinions either way. That's kind of what I want on the channel. I want discussion, so I'm really happy with how that video did. But for this one, and you'll sort of see by the title and probably by the thumbnail as well, is that there are some things right now that are missing in Hunt that I don't want to say Crytek specifically promised with update 2.3 for the Garden of the Witch event, but certainly some things that aren't here that are like, guys, it's March of 2025, where are some of these features, some of the things that they've been promising. And so the first thing I'm going to talk about is the map situation. In case you guys didn't know, if you're new to the channel or if you're new to Hunt, Hunt Showdown underwent a relaunch back in August of 2024, where they uploaded Hunt with a new engine, and they released a brand new map. It was technically map 4, Mammon's Gulch, set in Colorado rather than inside the Louisiana Bayou. And it came with a not only new assets, but obviously a new upgraded look and fidelity and graphics and everything like that. Especially on console, I really feel like there was a big benefit with HDR settings and whatnot. But Mammon's Gulch was great. However, the issue was that the game did not launch in a full capacity, right? We only had Mammon's Gulch for that first 30 days to play with, and it was like, okay, like, this is a great map, but like, we're getting fatigued, right? I certainly felt fatigued. It's like, I really enjoyed it for like the first like week and a half, and I'm like, okay, well, I kind of want to play the other maps, and it felt really tedious, and like having the same sort of color palette, even despite like certain times of day, there was, either nighttime or daytime. I can't remember what the other times of day were when it initially launched. But it was tedious playing it, right? And so, and then it wasn't until like 30 days later that we got Stillwater Bayou, which was definitely nice, and you definitely felt the visual upgrade there, because like Mammon's Gulch was a new map, and so it was just gonna feel visually distinct anyway. But having Stillwater Bayou back, it's like, oh, okay, this feels really good. I can totally see why you guys did the engine upgrade. It just looks great. And then they took some time to bring out Lost in Delta back, which felt like, okay, like how long is this gonna take to get the rest of the map? And they released a few more times of day, and that felt a little bit nicer, but still we were missing Lost in Delta for a little while there. And when they finally brought that back, it's like, okay, this feels good. Feels good to have Lost in Delta back. But it is now, at the time of recording, it's the end of March in 2025, and we still don't have DeSalle. Now, they've sort of mentioned, I think in one of the last developer updates on their website, that they are going to be bringing DeSalle back at some point later this year. And I gotta be honest, I thought it was going to be with this update, and I think a lot of people did. They just haven't been mentioning it, and it's been really odd why they've been kind of mum on the word. And so, in case anybody, again, doesn't know, they're from after the update, is that DeSalle was kind of it was the third map. It felt a little bit more visually distinct than the other two Bayou maps, just because like it had a bit more of a, I don't know, it almost felt like a Texas-like feel, or like further up north into Louisiana, something that was like out of the Bayou, if you know what I mean. It just, it felt completely different. And so we don't have DeSalle right now, which is a sort of big disappointment, because it's like, we don't have the full game. And it feels like there is something missing. And their lack of specificity on when it is going to be returning is a little concerning, right? Because it's like, guys, how long is this going to take? And I'm going to say right now that while I was streaming the other day, I had somebody come in on stream who had spoken to one of the Crytek devs, who specifically was a streamer, became partner, and then went to go work for Crytek. And it seems like this person was Delaney, and Delaney is obviously a big hunt streamer who went to go work for Crytek, and so he should have a little bit of inside knowledge as to what's going on. You know, obviously not huge knowledge. I mean, I don't think he was ever in game dev. He was just a streamer from France. But yeah, so allegedly, what this commenter said on my stream, coming from Delaney, is that the code, the engine, whatnot, have you, is delayed because they are having to rebuild DeSalle from the ground up. They can't just put the new, coat of paint on it. They can't upgrade its textures. They can't make the little tweaks that they would normally need to. They are having to rebuild it from the ground up, and this is not good. This is not good for a couple of reasons. Number one being is that, again, Hunt just feels incomplete without it, but also the fact is that we have been waiting for a long time and they've had zero communication on this issue. Now, if this is true and they're having to rebuild it from the ground up, then, I mean, who knows how long it is going to take until we get DeSalle back in the game. I mean, they're one of their, again, like I alluded to before, one of their last posts, their dev insight said that it is going to be coming later 2025, later in the year, whatever that means. And that was like towards the beginning of the year, I think in February, like early February when they made that post. And so that is no indication. And the fact is that when they were talking about bringing us the new map in Mammon's Gulch and the new engine update, that was all the way back in, well, I think the initial leak was in November of 2023 for the kind of the overlay of the map, the map within the map, right? But they had said previously that they were working on, bringing a new map in the engine update. And so, that was almost a year, but that was obviously a little bit more dev time than that. And so it's like, is it going to be the end of 2025 by the time we get to DeSalle? We just don't know. And again, the fact is that they haven't communicated on this issue, and having only 3 maps, like, it's subpar, man. I mean, the fact is that Crytek spends so much time working on events and skins, and this is all great to bring people into the game, but there's hardly any new actual content aside from a few new weapon variants, every event. The big content update is, when we get a new map or when we get a new boss, right? That's sort of, something interesting. We haven't had a proper boss since Scrap Peak, but obviously, like, Hellborn and Rotjaw have been, slightly, larger, substantive updates, but not nearly as big as a map. And I feel like that's essential. I mean, Hunt is already a small game, and the fact is that we don't have that much variety to begin with. And now that we've been missing one of the better maps, in the game for quite some time now, since August of 2024, I don't want to wait until August of 2025 until we get the new map. And I don't think anybody else does either. So, when this map, or when this current event ends towards the middle of May, or whenever it does, beginning of May, I really hope that the next event they're talking about, like, hey, this is our timeline for DeSalle and when it's returning. So anyway, why don't we go ahead and move on to the next topic. So the next thing I want to talk about is the UI. Again, sort of another controversial bit here is that, again, with the relaunch of Hunt, they did a whole entire refresh and rework of the game's UI, especially in the menus and how they function, the visual fidelity, and all that. And most people who were returning to the game after many hours arguably correctly assessed that it was a downgrade. There were so many bugs with how it worked, and obviously there was a lot of muscle memory that had to be relearned, but also too, it just felt like over complex, whereas the old Hunt just was, it had a simplicity to it. It certainly had its issues, you know, it wasn't optimized for console at all, and so it felt a real pain in the ass to use a lot of the times, but still it had its own, you know, it was simple and it worked. It was effective. And now what we kind of have is like a Call of Duty like UI that feels yeah, it just is frustrating to use. And, you know, the biggest thing that Crytek has capitulated on is that in recent developer updates, they're like, hey, we kind of fucked up. You know, people don't like it how it is. So we're going to be going back to a very, very similar look with how the UI was, and we're going to be implementing that very soon. Now, how soon is that, right? I think we were all under the assumption a little bit that it was also going to be coming with update 2.3. You know, they've sort of talked about that before. You know, they said, hey, we're not going to be doing a big next event because we want to sort of do Operation Health, right? Whatever that means. You know, work on some more important stuff, you know, to the actual user experience of the game rather than just, you know, pumping out events left and right. And so we kind of thought that, like, okay, like we should be getting some good UI changes with this next update, right? This is what they spend all their time on rather than doing a big event. No, they did not do that. They, you know, upgraded some of the visuals and they made it slightly smoother to get through, but they did not bring in the promised changes that they talked about before. And so it kind of feels like, what the fuck, guys? Like it's like a bait and switch a little bit. They're like, no, we're doing Operation Health here. We're going to make the game that much better, but we haven't gotten that yet. And so it's kind of like, when is this coming? You know, they kind of bring these promises, right, and then they don't deliver it, you know, until like months and months down the road. So, you know, it kind of makes me like wonder, like, when are you guys actually planning on doing this? And if you look here in this example of the menus, it still feels very visually clunky. I mean, all of the how we purchase items, you know, in the store, and how we, you know, take away stuff. It was all supposed to be a little bit more compact rather than all this sort of spread out mess. And, you know, again, in their update, they said that, like, oh no, we're going to smooth this out a little bit. We're going to make it, you know, very much similar to how it used to be with how you purchase hunters and how you know, make all your upgrades and buy all your gear in the store. You know, they just haven't delivered on this. And it makes me, again, like, really curious. Like, they've talked about communication so often, but when are we actually going to get this stuff implemented? And that's the point of frustration. The next thing I want to talk about here are, at least for me, a point of contention with how they were perceived in the game when they were first introduced, and that is the wildcard conditions. Again, for people who are new to Hunt, way back when in 2023, we got the first wildcard condition, which was the Inferno wildcard. Basically, like, the whole map had sections of large amounts of fire that blocked paths. It came with its own sort of visual upgrade, and it was really interesting. We got a variation on that wildcard condition later on in the year with the Dark Inferno that took place only at night. And it also had a really interesting flair with, like, the high contrast of the flames and then it being dark at night. It was really interesting. And if you go back on my channel earlier on, you'll see some examples of that that I can link to below, some of the different conditions that we experience. But yeah, so with the wildcard conditions, one of the biggest issues about them were their visual fidelity and visual kind of haziness that they added to actually being able to navigate the map, but also auditory issues. So the Inferno map was kind of, it was it was sort of a novel experience, and it was unique and interesting. But every time you got close to the flames, it was incredibly loud. And so you couldn't hear if there were people around at all. But it was kind of like, it's not that big of a deal. Like I can sort of avoid the fire areas, and even then I don't have to get that close, and I can still like be able to hear and navigate and be sort of just fine. Even though it like had some areas of the map that were literally blocked off by the fire, and you couldn't pass through them. It was like, okay, this is kind of fine, it's whatever. And then the next one that they added was Thunder Shower. Now, people had been asking for rain in the game for a long time. I mean, for hell, the game is set in the bayou, right? So it's just like, there should be rain. And they finally did that when they also released the Rotjaw Wildcard target, rather. And the rain had its novelty for, a week or so when I was first started playing it. This is just my personal opinion. And then afterwards, it got really too much, because it was like fog when you played in it. And then it had a heavy rain variation of it, every few minutes. And it got even worse, thick fog, and it was even more difficult to hear in the game. And at some point, I just decided that, no, I'm not going to play on this wildcard condition, because, like, I'm already having a hard time seeing, and on the PS4 version of the game, even though we were playing on PS5, it was a PS4 game, basically, the graphics and textures were so poopy that you could not see anything. And then with the auditory issues of the condition brought, I couldn't hear either. And Hunt is known for its incredible audio design, right? That's like, if anybody has anything negative to say, the best thing that they're going to say about it is that Hunt's audio design is better than almost any other game. And I know many people have said that. And so to sort of take that away, basically, with a condition that you have no choice to play in unless you just quit out the game or go extract, it was kind of gutting, And then with the visual, it's like, okay, like, not only can I not hear, but I can't see either. And the reason why I'm bringing it up now is because, again, they haven't brought them back in any way. They haven't mentioned on when they were going to bring them back. The game's director, not the lead designer, but the game's director, back when Post Malone was being introduced, his event was being introduced, he had an interview, and they were saying that the next wildcard condition he would love to see on Mammoth Gulch would be Inferno, right? And so it's like, okay, so were you going to be getting that soon? And we felt like they even teased that a little bit with the Year of the Snake Hunter. There was it looked like some fire in the background, so it's like, okay, are we actually going to be getting wildcard condition back relatively soon? And no, we haven't heard anything about it. They haven't even mentioned it in any of their developer updates on when we might get them, because I think that with the newest controls in HDR in the menus, it would actually might be all right to play, because you might actually be able to see a little bit depending. Obviously, we don't know. Because we don't have them back, and so it would be actually interesting to see, okay, how do they look, how do they feel, and with the new sound design, are we going to be getting any actual improvement? But we don't know, and it is, again, frustrating. Crytek is purporting to have, much better communication with us as a community, and yet they've been completely silent on this issue, and so it would be nice to just know, hey, are you guys planning on bringing these back? Is it something that you can even conceivably do within a year? Are we going to be waiting until 2026 to get these back? I mean, the Ash Bloom one, that was even worse than the rain, in my opinion. It was so loud, and it was just really, really, really thick fog and ash that was nearly impossible to see. And I quit out every time I got into those. I would quit out of the rain map as well, but the rain at least had its variations that made it a little bit easier to see and hear. So we just don't know, and that's the issue. But why don't we go ahead and move on to the next topic? So the next thing I want to bring up is crossplay. Obviously, we don't have crossplay between PC and console. I think if they were to do that, there would need to be some drastic changes before they ever did that, and I don't think they have any plan whatsoever to do it in the future, so we can just assume that that is not going to be coming anytime. However, what we do have is crossplay between Xbox and PlayStation, and that is pretty standard, right, when you think about it, for most competitive shooters and just other games in general that have online multiplayer that are across different platforms. There is crossplay that's pretty typical. So like having it in Hunt is not really controversial, although I do see on social media that people complain against, oh, I'm a PlayStation user and I don't want to be playing against Xbox, and oh, I'm an Xbox, like why are all these cheaters on PlayStation? I think that is a non-argument. And it actually doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't hold water at all. And frankly, this is just my own personal take, is that like you really shouldn't be caring about who you're playing against. I hide all the player names that I play against, so I don't even know what console they're playing on. At least I don't pay attention to that. And I don't know who I'm playing against, because like I'm not at that level of competition to where like I need to know, like, did I kill this one guy? Oh god, I got killed by this one 6-star. I can't believe it. Like this guy's certainly cheating. I run into him all the time. No, dude, like I don't do that. It takes away from the actual pain of the game, in my opinion. But that's aside the point. What I'm talking about here is that since we have crossplay, we don't have crossplay invite between the consoles, between Xbox and PlayStation. And again, I'm specifically addressing the console player base here. But this is something that many, many people have been asking for. The fact is that like, oh, I'm on PlayStation, but like 2 of my buddies are on Xbox and they both have this game and we really want to play it together, but we can't. And other games have crossplay invite and we don't. There's Discord support on both consoles, so like you just would be able to send a Discord chat and be able to chat with each other, and yet we still can't invite one another to play. I mean, me personally, like I'm friendly with Toxic Pancake, and I would love to be able to play with him, and I know there are other players out there that would be able to, that would love to be able to play with each other across console. I don't see why it's not possible. They haven't said that like it's anything that they're working on in the near future, but many, many people are wanting that. They've been requesting that for a long time, and so it's sort of a no-brainer for them to do that. I mean, we can obviously play with each other, right, through randoms, right? Like when you're doing random trios, you can get linked with Xbox players if you're on PlayStation, and vice versa. So it doesn't make sense to also not have that invitation feature as well. It's a no-brainer, and Crytek should implement that as soon as possible. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about today is the overall aesthetics of Hunt Showdown. When the game first started, back when early development, the Hunt was a completely different game. It was like this third-person cooperative shooter where you were hunting down boss type enemies, very much like it is today, but it had a more Southern Gothic feel, and you were in the swamps of Louisiana. It was still like much more horror centric than it is now. I mean, Hunt still has an overall horror theme, supernatural horror, but it was different then. It was known as Hunt Horrors of the Gilded Age. And much different than what Hunt is today. And but still, early Hunt Showdown, had that visual flair of Southern Gothic and horror to it that was it was unique. It was one of the draws of the game. What drew me in was its sort of 19th century aesthetics as well. Specifically, believe it or not, I might complain, but the bomb lance. In early versions of the game, I saw that. I'm like, dude, that is something straight out of Bloodborne. And Bloodborne was a huge game for me. I loved it, and that was sort of what drew me to this game a little bit more. And so, as anybody could tell, Hunt has overgone very many visual changes over time. And I think the most recent example of how different it has been is Post Malone's Murder Circus. I mean, that was a completely, like, I don't want to say 180, and I guess it fit within the theme, the overall grimdark kind of theme of Hunt, but it was like, okay, we got murder clowns now, it seems a little hokey when Showdown at least had a bit of a seriousness to it. Yeah, and so what I wanted to talk about here is, this prime example of a couple of weapon skins to just kind of show you how different it feels. And I want to talk about that with the Martini and the Sparks and the sort of skins that they have available to them. Okay, why don't we take a look at the Sparks right here at their skins. So this is obviously just your basic Spark skin. It's honestly pretty nice. I do like the basic Spark skin. I just wish that the wood was maybe like a little darker, and the barrel like more of those, case hardened, kind of blued, almost like color. That's what I would love, like the hardware and the barrel to be. But so this is the main skin that I primarily take, is the Reckoning, and I think that looks the most, more or less normal skin, for the Sparks, because you look at the Caldera's Cadaver song, sorry, and again it's similar theme for other skins in the game before. It's got a bunch of skulls and red shit on it. Louisiana Lustrum that we've had for quite a long time. I think it was a Prestige 5 reward that you got. It's okay, but those stripes are fucking obnoxious in my opinion. And then the Shamaharan, again, it's interesting, but it's just, I don't know, it's a little bit too flashy for me. Firetorn, again, this is a closer to normal looking skin. They put it in the game for DLC to help fight those Australian wildfires all those years ago. And then Trident's Teeth, again, it is a sort of normal looking skin, but like the color is just off. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd rather, if I didn't have any, if all the skins were like this, I think I would rather just play the standard Spark skin, because it looks the best. But other than that, we use the Reckoning. So why don't we go ahead and take a look at the Martini. So the Martini, again, has some, I feel like, better skins for the Martini. So if you look at this, the regular skin and the Longhand, which is the one I prefer, this is the most close to just being a normal skin, right? Like just base skin without anything. And I just find it really nice. Like it looks kind of prestigious. If you look at like what the Mosin Centenary skin looks like, it is just sort of a prestige skin with not a whole lot of flair, right? It's kind of like, I know, it's very British in a way, right? And the Martini Henry is certainly a British rifle. Crown of Cinders, this looks okay. Looks like more kind of like decayed wood, like it's a much older rifle than it actually is. The Fierce Garland, this is a nice looking gun. Like the wraps on it, again, it feels very British. I think it comes for the Coal Bearer, right? The Santa skin. The Midwinter's Tusk, this I don't care for too much. Just like the metal work on it just seems like dull, and rusted, so I don't know. Siren Song, again, this one isn't too bad either. It's very simple. It's got like a few markings on it, but the metal looks alright. I would prefer it if it was a darker metal. Again, more like cast iron, or whatever the case hardened, sorry, whatever that term is. Yeah, I just feel like we have better skins on the Martini Henry compared to the Sparks. And yeah, I can't think of any other examples. Maybe one other example in the Centennial. So yeah, taking a look at these, the primary skin I use, I don't know, I think the base skin for the Centennial is just not that interesting. I use the Calamity Jane just because it's got that case-hardened look on the metalwork, and then it's just like a nice wood color. The Swallow's Tail isn't bad either. It's got the more case-hardened hardware and receiver, and some okay woodwork in here. The Motherlode, again, like, this is just, I don't know. Like, why do I want burned wood? Lion's Roar, it's okay, but again, it's got that circus sort of theme that is just like fucking obnoxious, I think. Memento Mori, this one's not bad. It's not bad, but I would never use it. And then Tarnished Record, yeah, I mean, no thanks. There's just too much going on with that one. It's not even a whole lot going on, but it's just too much going on. Anyway, so what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments below what you think of the video. What do you think is something essential that's missing to Hunt? How long have you been waiting for DeSalle to return? Is there anything that you want to see brought back that you desperately can't live without that you need in the game? Or am I completely insane? Am I losing my mind on some of these ideas? Am I the only one thinking about this? Either way, go ahead, let me know down in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and go ahead and watch this clutch.